Hey guys, in today's video I'm going to show you how we DIY a super low profile hydronic in-floor heating system for our Sprinter van build. At first we looked at buying a pre-made kit, but after realizing it was going to be over $5,000 we did some digging and figured out how to do it ourselves for less than $800. I'm going to walk you through how we did it and the materials we used, but first here's a quick overview so you can choose the right floor for your van. Basically you have three options when choosing a floor for your van. The cheapest and simplest option is insulation only. This consists of rigid foam under a plywood subfloor. This doesn't generate any heat, it just prevents loss, so you're going to have cold feet in the winter. Then we have electric radiant heating mats or pads. You can get them in 120 volt, 24 volt, or 12 volt. We've used the 12 volt version in previous van builds and I've linked our video to it somewhere up here. This will create a nice warm surface for your feet to touch, but it draws quite a bit of power and it won't work to actually heat up the van. It just heats up the floor itself. It's really affordable and easy to install, but you need to make sure you have a big enough battery bank to power it and know that it's not going to heat up your van. Finally, the best, and what we're talking about in this video, is a hydronic heated flooring system. So this consists of a PEX tubing loop that's run through the floor and filled with warm or hot glycol. So this warm coolant is then circulated through the pipes in the floor and that radiates heat up through the floor and into the entire van. Total floor thickness is 1.25 inches, and you can also go a little bit thinner if you want to go with 1/4 inch plywood on top instead of 3/8 like we did. We wanted our floor as low profile as possible, so we ended up buying 1-inch XPS and rigging up this DIY hot wire planer to plane it down to 0.8 of an inch. This worked out great and would leave us enough material to router out 5/8 inch grooves for the 1/2 inch PEX and aluminum heat transfer plates. Once we had our 4 XPS foam pieces cut to the same thickness, we laid and spaced them out with 1-inch pieces of wood and then used the factory flooring as a template to mark out where to cut. You could also look at Cusa board or K-cell if you want a denser material. These just weren't available locally to us. Next, we covered the wheel wells entirely with kill mat to provide some extra sound deadening. Then I removed the factory D-ring anchors. We chose not to anchor our floor through these spots, but some people do reuse those bolts. And then one final sweep and clean of the van. Now this is highly controversial, but we chose to use Minicell Foam in the grooves of the factory floor. We thought this was the best option as it would provide some extra support for the XPS over the grooves there, and would also give some extra insulation. We used super glue to install it, which was quick and easy. Then we just used that same factory floor as a template on our 3/8 Baltic birch subfloor. This is the first time we used 5x5 sheets for subfloor, but it actually worked out well and resulted in much less waste. After testing the fitment of the plywood subfloor, we moved on to the sheet vinyl. So same thing, we laid it out on the garage floor and this time used the plywood subfloor as the template to trace out. Now we were ready to start the actual install. So we removed all the XPS foam and did one final clean of the van and applied a healthy amount of PL Premium construction adhesive to the ribs. We applied it one section at a time and made sure to include those wood spacers and then put the plywood in and covered the entire thing with as much weight as we could find. After 24 hours, we removed the weights and plywood and used gaps and cracks spray foam to fill those junctions where we had put those 1-inch pieces of wood earlier. We didn't want any possible squeaking points at the foam junctions or at the edges where it might touch the van, and the spray foam works great for this. The last step was to trim off the top and make sure we had a nice clean flat surface to lay out where the PEX A tubing would go.
We're planning out where the PEX is going to run, but because it is flexible, but it's hard to lay out, string instead to mark the pathway to make sure we have enough.
Okay, let's recap. So we've got PEX A coming from there, down here, back up, and then around, and down, back, and then the final run goes here, over to there. By using that string to lay out our PEX loop, we were able to measure it and confirm that our total length was around 90 linear feet.
9.5.
We have it all marked out. We've got our N95s on and the front portion draped off so we won't get any styrofoam up there. And I think we're ready to go with the router and carve out these grooves. I found that a 5/8 inch Cove router bit worked great to fit the aluminum heat transfer plate and then the 1/2 inch PEX inside. And as you can see, I used a straight edge as a guide along the straight sections and then carefully freehanded the rounded ends. Meanwhile, it was kind of fun actually, wasn't it? And here is the result, pre-heat transfer plates. So I've gone ahead and laid out all the aluminum heat transfer plates here to make sure the spacing works out. I'm actually going to take them all out now and just glue them in using PL Premium. They're a snug fit, but I just want to make sure there isn't any chance for expansion or contraction or movement when the glycol loop is changing temperatures. Once the heat transfer plates are glued in, I'm going to apply a bead of silicone inside the heat transfer plate, and that will help get really good contact between the 1/2-inch PEX and the heat transfer plate itself, and that is to avoid, again, any creaking or cracking that can happen as the PEX is expanding in the heat transfer plate. To fill the gaps behind the front seats, I added these aftermarket trim pieces. Then I applied a thin bead of PL Premium to the back of the heat transfer plates and tapped them into place using a rubber mallet or the heel of my hand. We're going to use this waterproof silicone in the heat transfer plate. So basically I just applied a bead of silicone and then pushed the PEX A into the groove of the heat transfer plate. I repeated this for the entire loop, and then at the end I needed to notch out the floor for where the pipes come up. Then I started applying PL Premium to glue down the subfloor, but I almost forgot a really important step. We need to measure and take photos of where the pipes are. I'm gonna sacrifice the tape measure now. It actually works surprisingly well. I'm not going to put weight on it yet. I want to glue the next one, make sure they all fit perfect and I can still move them around. So basically just applying little dabs of PL Premium on the foam between and around the heat transfer plates, and then laying out each piece of the Baltic Birch subfloor. So the last thing to do is bring back in all the weights. As you can see, we chose to go with sheet vinyl for the top layer of our floor. This is Mannington Mill Creek in their thickest platinum quality. The adhesive I'm using is the Mapei Eco 350, the same that we've used in all of our previous vans and had absolutely no issues with. We'll put links in the description for all of the products we've used in this project. After installing numerous floors like this, I've found the less adhesive I can use, the better it will turn out. So use that notch trowel and just try to spread it really well. Lastly, make sure to use rolling pins to apply pressure throughout the floor. We found that starting in the middle and working our way to the outer edges works best, as you can push the glue to the outside. And you might be wondering which hydronic system we're going to be using with this heated floor. We chose to go with the Timberline system. I've got everything laid out here. That is my next project to tackle. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. Feel free to leave any questions or feedback in the comments below, and we'll catch you on the next one.